Hey guys, this is Fate at Diablo3StrategyGuide.com, and today I'm going to be breaking down another build for you guys. This time it's going to be a Witch Doctor build, and it's the 5 cooldown Firebats build. And I've tried out a lot of different builds for the Witch Doctor and Inferno. I've been playing between Act 1 to 3, mainly in Act 2 and 3. And this is definitely my favorite build so far. It offers a lot more versatility than a build like Zombie Bears. It's just all-around a great build. Okay, so there's a couple assumptions built into kind of this video that we're going to be working from. We're going to assume that you have access to all the skills and runes from level 60. You could probably modify this build to work on kind of the lower levels, but for the sake of simplicity, we're going to just say you're level 60 and you're in Inferno difficulty and you know how to kite. If you're one of the 3 range classes and you don't know how to kite, hopefully you've been playing the entire game with a tank, but if you ever want to solo, you absolutely need to know how to kite. So we're going to assume that you kind of know the basics of that. We're also going to assume you're comfortably geared up. That's really important for all of the Inferno level difficulties. While it is possible to fight slightly under geared, gear is just such a huge component of this game that you need to be properly geared for this build to work. Alright, so some of the strengths of this build. Well, kind of what happened when the Witch Doctor first got to Inferno and people started to experiment with Vision Quest, which of course gives you an additional 300% mana regen when you have 4 spells on cooldown, is they would make these builds that had 4 spells, only 4 spells that you could put on cooldown, and typically 1 or 2 of these would have extremely long cooldowns. And what this kind of meant is you would be able to easily really get that 300% additional mana regen, but the problem would be that you simply would be working from a smaller palette of skills when you're playing the game. You'd be working from, you'd have those kind of 2 big bursts when you cast your big spells, and then you would basically be acting with just 4 skills, and you would have really sick mana regen, but you would still be working from a much smaller skill set than other players. Another kind of big point is that it uses Firebats as its primary damage spell, and Firebats doesn't offer you the most kind of raw damage as like a spell like Zombie Charger, Zombie Bears might, but it offers a lot more versatility. It's got much stronger range, so you don't have to run right up to mobs and cast it, and because of that, it just offers much better kind of survivability, better kiting ability, higher mobility, and that sort of thing. And so one of those problems with those kind of 4 cooldown Vision Quest builds is they really lacked a lot of snares that you could keep off cooldown and use when you needed them. You really had to, you were really restricted in what you could do. And so this build really rectifies that. And please look in the notes to see the exact build used. We also have a really in-depth article on our site, Diablo3StrategyGuide.com, kind of covering the ins and outs of this build, as well as kind of how to item up your character to do really well with this build. And this build also works really well with crit, as do most builds kind of post 1.03. Alright, so jumping into some gameplay. So we're going to watch a series of me taking on kind of these elite mobs. So the first one, you can see I'm against skeletons. And a lot of this is really similar to kind of the wizard builds that I made. So it's really about kind of moving around, and you can see I kind of got in trouble there, so I used my Spirit Walk, and it's really important to have a really good sense of when your cooldowns are on and off. So your Spirit Walk and Soul Harvest cooldowns, which can respectively use to escape, as well as heal you, have 15 seconds, so it's really nice to kind of sync those up. Hex also has a similar cooldown, but you're going to kind of find that you want to cast that at slightly different times. Okay, so now here's a ranged mob, and this is all about just like maneuverability, dodging projectiles, and just kind of surviving. You have to move outside of those frost things, and you have to have really good game sense of when you need to move around and kind of how these monsters work. And so, I mean, many of your snares work in different patterns. Like Zombie Wall is best cast from a distance, whereas Horrify and Hex are best cast kind of near your enemies. And you can see I just kind of cast Zombie Wall at the end there in order to get a little bit extra DPS. Okay, so in this next mob, really pay close attention to how I'm using the zombie wall, and this is a really appropriate usage of it. So I see it, and this is a great skill in kind of these dungeonous areas, so I can immediately use it to zone out. And if you've played StarCraft, it's really similar to a force build that kind of does damage and you have on cooldown. So it's great for these areas where you kind of have these natural barriers that you can use in conjunction with your zombie wall to restrict and force your enemies certain ways, and if they don't go that way, they end up just taking a lot more damage. And so you can see against these Nagas and kind of people that can sneak up from afar, you really want to keep your distance as much as possible from them. And so you can see I'm just kiting kind of a little bit further back than I would against some mobs such as skeletons. And because they have mortar as well, that's also a really important thing to note as far as dodging them. And so against these enemies that kind of can sneak up close really quickly, so that would include people just that are really fast or teleporting mobs, you kind of want to keep that Horrify off of cooldown, because that's really what you can use to kind of get enemies off you that are really close. Okay, and you can see a very similar thing here against Vortex mobs. You want to keep your distance as much as possible, and the spells that you want to keep off cooldown are not Wall of Zombies, because Wall of Zombies in that case is pretty useless when you get sucked up in real close. The two spells that you want to really keep off of cooldown in those cases are Spirit Walk as well as Horrify, because those two can immediately kind of alleviate a lot of that damage that is being put onto you. And so you can see in that case, I just really quickly take down a whirlwind mob. So I hope you guys have learned something from this video. The 5 cooldown Firebats build, all about survivability, using your 5 cooldowns. A lot more flexibility than kind of the traditional Vision Quest builds, but still offering a lot of the mana regeneration, which can be used in conjunction with Firebats to just do a ton of damage. Again, it's a really similar build to Zombie Bears, but as well as the 4 cooldown Vision Quest builds, but it just offers a ton more utility and versatility, and a lot of the kind of gameplay is based off of how you act, and managing your cooldowns is one of the most interesting, fun, and challenging parts of this build. So I hope you guys try out this build, and I think you'll really enjoy it. And please check out our strategy guide at www.diablo3strategyguide.com. We're bringing you both newbie-oriented as well as Inferno level Act 3 and Act 4 oriented content for you that's both free and premium. So please check us out, as well as our YouTube channel, D3 Strategy Guide. Thank you for watching.